Welcome to the No Shame Podcast. I'm John Groders. Once a year, filmmakers and producers, actors and directors from all over the world gather to be encouraged in the Lord and in their craft at the International Christian Visual Media Conference, or ICVM. We spent the week interviewing many of those who attended for our podcast.
Have no shame, no, we are not afraid, no shame.
Welcome to the No Shame Podcast. It is day 4 at the ICVM. I'm kind of thrilled to have Gary Chapman sitting across from me. Gary, I have loved your music and your humor for a long time, and yet 2 mornings ago you were supposed to lead worship at this here conference.
Right.
And you know, the craziest thing happened. 3 minutes before worship, Jared Giese tapped me on the shoulder and said, "John, can you lead worship? Gary can't make it." I got to substitute for you. Ridiculous.
And what did you say when you got up there?
I said, you know what? I remember a line you said a long time ago when you were in concert, and you said to all of us, and me particular, "I know all of you men in this audience hate me right now, and I feel your pain." And you made us laugh. And I said to the people, you may have noticed to your disappointment that I am not Gary Chapman. But I am Stephen Curtis Chapman,
there you
and
go.
That's even better. And
That's
they were all happier
much
yet. So, no, thank you for being. You led worship this morning. You played out at the Johnny Cash Farm the other night. Just would you tell me about worship this morning and what you've done with these hymns?
You know, worship for me is it's always been really private. I've always told people that I'm terrible at leading worship because I don't do it the way that most people do it.
What's that mean?
There's not a tremendous amount of modern worship music that I love.
Yeah.
That is changing. Honestly, within the past couple of years, that's changed dramatically for me. But I'm just a musical snob. And if something doesn't just slay me, I'm not interested in singing it again. So, and I don't mean that in a dark way. It's just if you do something a long time, you're like a chef can't eat at McDonald's. And your palate just gets more refined. The hymns, however, are a different thing for me. A song doesn't live for hundreds of years because it's weak. It lives because it has life in it. Mm-hmm. The same Holy Spirit that inspired it is still in it. And those songs have been really special for me, in particular with the death of my dad. My dad lived with my wife and I until he passed away in our home Easter Sunday morning, right at sunrise, 2009. You can't write this stuff. It happened exactly that way. It was absolutely beautiful. He was an amazing guy.
What's his name?
His name was Terry Chapman. And the last year and a half of his life, he lost use of his legs, and so we were always close. We got much closer. So I found out kind of the hard way that he couldn't take any of the pain medication that was offered to him because he just couldn't go there, having never, he'd never done any drug, he'd never felt high, he just couldn't do it. It was too awkward for him. The thing that got him through the process was me sitting on the edge of his bed and singing and playing the songs that he had taught me 50 years before. And that lit something in me. About a month after he died, my wife said, "You know what? You need to keep doing that. You just need to keep doing that. There's more people that need what happened there." So we started this thing called A Hymn a Week. And every week we would put up just a guitar, vocal, very simple rendition. In my mind, it's simple. You're telling me you want all the chord tabulations. I'll get those for you.
Just film yourself playing. Just show your hands.
That's what you'll see on the videos. I particularly try to let that be visible.
Oh, I'm thinking
So you
they're
can see
audio.
it.
I can watch you play.
Yes, you can,
Oh,
yes. Yeah.
I'm just going to plug this because I was at worship this morning. The funniest line I heard all week. This is the International Christian Visual Media Conference, ICVM, and Gary gets up and said, "Mornings describe which of us are Christian and which of us are just visual media." I mean, that is just penetrating. And then he plugs in his guitar, and he starts playing hymns that everybody knows. Great is thy faithfulness. We don't need lyrics. We don't need hymn books.
No.
And you've just turned these melodies into some beautiful arrangements. And you can't recreate talking about music or worship, but there's this combination of, like you said, the enduring power of a spirit which has indwelled a song like Great Is Thy Faithfulness, and then Gary's musical touch on it. And you're going to want to hear, I want to hear more. The church where I lead worship loves hymns,
Right.
And we do them, and they sound fine on the organ, but they sound new when you play them.
Well, I tell you, I'll give away the secret, and you can start doing it yourself. I rarely change any of the lyrics. I rarely change any of the melodies. The thing that I will affect the two things: the chord movements, the transitions from one chord to the next, and the feel. Many of them were very rigid.
Yep.
In their original form,
Yep.
almost militaristic,
Yep.
and that's just not digestible to modern ears.
Right.
So I changed the feel slightly, and I do mess with the chords underneath a bit. And honestly, one of the more fun things that I do now, having done 170 or so of them, I'm now going into basically musical archaeology. I'm finding these hymns that nobody's heard. Honestly, for 100, 200 years, a lot of them you can't even find any music to whatsoever. But the lyric is amazing, and I'm co-writing with dead people, quite
Yeah,
frankly,
right.
and you know, it's really fun. Nobody gripes at me about my ideas. My ideas are all good.
No
turns
talk
out.
back.
Yeah, exactly.
I did a promotion a couple years for, you might have been one of them, that there was a Fanny Crosby album that was published, Hymns of Fanny Crosby, all contemporary artists
Right.
did one song. And I did a little promo film for that, and found an old church that was period, and
Cool.
found an old piano, and found a woman that looks like Fanny and could play.
That's
and,
awesome.
And researched her. You know, she
Sure.
was blind. You know, she had every reason to have a life of miserable complaining, and she has a life of worship and joy.
She was very joyful on losing her sight. She didn't want it. She was afraid she would
Yeah.
lose the perspective that she had.
If you've never read about Fanny Crosby, she spends time in the New York slums, serving the poor, writing songs for Jesus. We're always thinking of ideas like you. I think of a little series about Behind the Hymns hosted by Gary Chapman.
Send
would
me
be
in,
the
Coach.
best.
I'm ready.
We'd go back behind all these hymns, visit the people that wrote them, where they came
See,
from,
I
and then
do.
hear your...
You'll see when you look at the videos. I do a brief history
Do
because
ya?
a lot of them have amazing stories.
Exactly.
They all came from pretty much almost all of them are from one of two things: either extreme joy or extreme pain.
Yeah.
Many times both. And you know, that theme is not going away. It's still really, really relatable today. And so I give a brief history of the hymn, and if there's not one, I say something about what it means to me personally. And then I just do top to bottom, one pass. I don't try to make them perfect.
Wow.
The only time I've ever actually redone one is when I felt myself performing, because I try to stay out of the way and let the song be the song. That's almost impossible for me because I do what I do. But when I feel that happening, I stop and start over and try to back. I don't know if you noticed this morning. I spent most of the time off mic.
I did notice.
Because once it gets going, I don't need to be the guy up front yapping into a microphone. I need to get out of the way and let God sing.
And you do that because, as a performer, I would like to hear you perform. I would like to hear Gary Chapman sing.
But that's not a
That's
performance.
not why you were there.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a different thing for me, and a lot of people don't see it that way. They want me to get up and, you know, be the guy that I was the other night at the Johnny Cash farm. And I can't do it. I'm not comfortable trying to manipulate is really the right word because I've been on stage my whole life. My mom put me on a piano bench when I was 3 years old, and together we sang a song called Inside the Gate. After church, an old guy in the church came up and said, "Son, you did a good job," and he put a shiny new nickel in my hand, and I have never looked back. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And because of that, I know what's going to happen when I get on stage. I'm going to do what I do, and I'm going to do everything within me so that you leave happier, better, hopefully affected eternally to some degree. And that's not what needs to happen in worship. In worship, you're just trying to bring people into God's presence. And the only way I can do it and not feel guilty, for lack of a better word, is to just get lost in the worship myself. And when I do that, it works.
Gary, a lot of us are worship leaders. They've asked us to do it, and a lot of us do that. I hope we all get to hear what you just said. All of us. I hope we all get to hear what you just said. One more time, the website where we can find these. Just tell everybody.
On Facebook, it's a hymn a week. There is actually a web page, ahymnaweek.com. It's only there for people that want to support, because it does take some time. We don't make any money at it. Quite frankly, it's wound up costing me plenty over the past now, good grief, 9 years. So,
well, I'll plug the other side. Gary said the other night, he said that from some error, I guess, in the printing process, they actually printed more of your latest CD than you personally need.
They did. That's on iTunes. It's called The Truth.
The Truth. And I heard a song, well, at least one from that album the other night. If you haven't listened to Gary Chapman lately, man, I got a chance to hear you twice this week. You sound as good as I ever remember. I appreciate you spending this time with us. I appreciate you leading us with worship, and I appreciate you teaching us.
Well, thank you for grabbing me the other morning. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. Anytime you need that.
Pleasure.
Have no shame. No, we are not afraid. No shame.